You're listening to Backstage Access, where we sit down with the artists behind the music, talking life, faith, and behind-the-scenes conversations. Real people, real stories. Let's head on backstage. All right, thank you for joining us on Backstage Access. My name is Scott Lowe. Tonight, we have the original Hawk Nelson himself. We got Jason Dunn. Jason, how are you?
What's happening, Scott?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for joining us. I know it's a little bit later in the evening, but really appreciate you coming on here and spending some of your evening with us.
I'm so happy to do it. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So you're currently at home, right? You just got off the road, right?
I did. I got home last week, and I'm sitting on my couch with my slippers on, talking to you.
There you go.
Living the dream.
That's what it's all about.
You got it.
So with the and now I know you did the Y2K Reloaded tour, and was that your first tour since you had left Hawk Nelson?
I did a short run with a project called Lights Go Down.
Okay.
In 2014, I believe. But yeah, that was like 7 shows, I think, with a band. But yeah, after that, I have done nothing. So yeah, this was the first hurrah in over a decade. Can you believe it?
That is crazy. So how did it feel? I mean, was it an adjustment? Did it feel natural?
Hey, you were there for some of those. So yeah, it was certainly an adjustment, man. Like, I think the expectations versus reality, where you're like, yeah, this will be so fun, and then you get out there, you're with the band, you meet the band, you rehearse with the band for a couple of days, and you're like, wow, this feels really good, and then the show begins, and you run on the stage, and you're like, the first show, I was completely gassed, but before the very first chorus, I was like out of breath, like huffing and puffing like a 75-year-old man, and I was just spent. And I was like, oh my gosh, I do not remember how much energy is required to make a show happen. But it was certainly a memorable one, and I loved every second of it.
Yeah. I mean, and here's the thing is, I went to the very first show of the tour, and it was in Illinois, and I went, and I never would have guessed that you had been away for so long. And
get out of here.
I'm 100% serious. And like I told you after the show, like I had never gotten to see you with Hawk Nelson. And so
right.
like I really didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how it was going to be. And I was having a conversation with a friend of mine. Like I legitimately felt like that tour in particular. And, I've been to over 50 shows. I've seen Seventh Day Slumber all like 38 or 39 times. Like I've been involved like in a lot of shows and things, but that Y2K Reloaded tour, I felt like there was something so special about that tour. And like Illinois just really hit me. Like your set, it's hard to put into words, but like it was just so special and so memorable. And then when we got to do it in Anderson, like I'm inviting people, like you guys got to come out. Like I promise you. And a friend of mine from our old church, he came out. He lives in Franklin, but he drove all the way up to Anderson to see the show. And he said the same thing. He's like, this was amazing. And I don't even know if you remember the Anderson show, but even your voice was a little
dude, I was cooked. I was how am I going to do this?
And so
I certainly remember
it. But still though, like the energy that you gave, and that was the thing that I appreciate about all of you, is that no matter what was going on, whether, your voice or, I know some of the guys from Seventh Day Slumber, like their bus having issues, and there was so much working against you guys on that tour. And you guys still gave like 100% every single night. And I was just blown away. It was just, like I said, it was just such a special tour. And I'm so thankful, that I got to attend not one, but 2 of those shows.
That's very kind. I agree, man. Like just showing up, I guess, even for the first time, like I took my kid, which you met, Ryan,
Mm-hmm.
and this was the first tour for me in a long time, like I said. So like, just even like the amount of emotions and feelings thinking about just flying down to Nashville to meet with everybody again for the first time. Like, well, first there was the ice storm, so our flight barely even made it to Nashville to begin with. But then flying there, being like, there wasn't a lot of communication with the band, being like, do they know my set? Do they have all the songs learned? Like, I give them to them a couple months, like before Christmas, to get kind of started.
Mm-hmm.
But there wasn't really much communication. It was like, shoot, are they going to know the songs? Are they going to, how's this all going to work out? What if it doesn't work out? Am I going to have to do this set on my own with an acoustic guitar? That's going to suck because it's a rock tour. So all these things were going through my head. And then there's still the nervous jitters of being like on the road. Like, we're going to spend the next few weeks with strangers. Are we going to get on? Are they going to like me? Those feelings don't go away, which they do. You get those feelings as a new artist. But I realized, even as like a veteran, so to speak, like, you're like, shoot, like, what if they don't like me? Those are real feelings you have.
Yeah.
And I remember just getting to Nashville and getting down to Joseph and Lori's place and just unloading there for a few days, and then meeting the band, and then they're like upstairs plugging in. I could hear them like practicing without me. And I'm like, you guys are incredible. And then I remember talking to Blaze and Weston and Zach, being like, well, I'm like, the worst part about this set is me. So that's a good problem to have, And again, like I was trying to lead up to, is like just the camaraderie between all the artists and the bands. Just, there's 12 of us living on the road together, and there can't be any bad blood when you're in tight quarters, as you've seen, and there wasn't at all. And it was a really, really cool experience. Even just to be able to meet Nate and Maggie. I'd worked with Nate last year on a song. We did together virtually, basically, and I kind of got to know him just by doing that. But to actually hang out in person and just get to know him as a dude was just incredible. And Joe and the guy, like, I've known Joseph for 25 years or whatever. So just to go right back to square one, man, like when I met him again last summer, it's like we hadn't missed a beat. And just the opportunity to do this again was just, I'm really, really, I'm so happy that they asked me, and so proud of what we got to do together on this tour.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. We had another artist before that was telling us about road life, and they were like, you have to like the people that you're on tour with, because living in a bus together with people that you don't like, that's not going to go very well.
No, sir.
But I could really tell, the way that you guys meshed, and we got to do the in Anderson, we did the Q&A, the VIP Q&A with you guys, and just seeing the way that all of you meshed together. I mean, it again, like, never would have thought that this was your guys's, first tour together.
Yeah, I agree. I felt that too, man.
Yeah. So,
actually, I miss them.
What's that?
I already said it. I miss them already,
Yeah. Well, you guys
can't wait for the next one.
I'm curious, and I'll ask this now rather than at the end. But you guys, I thought that I heard that you guys were doing the tour again in a couple months. Is that accurate?
Yeah, they actually just reached out to me. Like 2 days ago, 2 or 3 days ago, and it was asking about the potential of doing a run in May to the West Coast. And obviously I'm going to do that for sure. Like, it was amazing. And I wouldn't turn it down for anything. Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah. West Coast is in for a treat for sure.
Let's go.
So I know obviously everybody knows you as, you started Hawk Nelson when you were young, and, you guys, things went really, really well. You guys made it big, and but maybe like there's some people who like know Hawk Nelson's music, but maybe they're not familiar with your story. So if you don't mind, just kind of sharing, a little bit about you and your story. And
yeah, all right. I grew up in a Christian family from the time I was about 5 years old. My mom and dad were alcoholics. My dad was a avid drug user. And my mom became a Christian because of our old lady that lived next door to us named Dolly. She took my mom to a church meeting. My mom and our other neighbor got saved. My dad wanted nothing to do with it. He told her to stop, basically. And after many lows, my kid brother was born with a hole in his heart, which God miraculously healed. My dad couldn't believe it, gave his life to Jesus at this time, and stopped drinking, stopped doing drugs, like cold turkey, just quit. And my parents became what I always refer to as these righteous zealots. You know, we got pulled out of everything. We got pulled out of school. We were put in a Christian school. I told people we were in church 8 days a week. You know, my parents were those avid churchgoers. They volunteered for everything. You need a home group. Oh, they're going to lead it. Play guitar. So, you know, he led worship in our church. My best friend was a pastor's kid, you know, and any sleepovers were only at their house, you know, and so we were very involved in the church. And I was until I was about 19 years old. You know, I started playing music. I played music at a really young age. Like I was playing piano as a 4-year-old kid. Having a bunch of siblings, you know, older and younger, I kind of got made fun of a lot for playing piano. So, you know, like any 10-year-old kid, I just stopped playing and decided to learn guitar instead because, you know, electric guitar is cool when you're 12, right? So, my dad taught me guitar, and due to that, I started playing in the youth band and leading worship in my youth group and things like that. The other guys in the youth band, we became friends and started our own band. We were secret. I mean, I was secretly into punk music. My parents would never allow that in our house. Just to kind of paint the picture of my upbringing. I wasn't allowed to listen to Petra. So the only music I could listen to and would listen to was Michael W. Smith. And okay. I'm not embarrassed to say that. You know, he was a big influence for me growing up. But anyways, I led worship in a youth band until I was about 19 years old. And at this point, Hawk Nelson had started, where we kind of drew our line in the sand, being like, are we a worship band or are we a punk rock band? And we were like, okay, we're not going to do worship music because, you know, we would play constantly around Ontario where we grew up, where, you know, the classic, hey, you guys, would you come and play Friday? But do like 30 minutes of your own stuff, but then do worship, you know, but that was kind of how it always was. And so growing up, we're like, okay, we're just doing that. And like, shoot, we're the worship band. That's kind of how we were known as, you know? So then when Hawk started, we're like, okay, we're going to not do that. We're going to just be, if you want to have us, you want to book us, we're going to play lively punk rock music. And that's what we're going to do. And, you know, that's what we did. And it was a lot of fun. And we kind of built a following just by doing that. Some friends of ours in another band locally had to bail on a bunch of shows in the U.S. and kind of gave our name. Actually, Kokomo, Indiana was the first show we ever did. Because of a band canceled and gave them our name instead. So we ended up playing a show there with Kids in the Way. And that's kind of how we got our connection with those guys, which sparked playing Cornerstone, which signed us to Tooth and Nail Records, and then going on tour with Sidewalk Slam. And then we you know, ended up playing all these shows and building a fan base for ourselves in the U.S. And just kind of made a living doing that. And it was awesome. But as that happened, we left home, left our church and our youth group, and we're just kind of having to fend for ourselves just spiritually, if that makes sense, where, you know, we always had like this youth leader or someone that was, you know, we could be accountable to while we were at home all the time. Mm-hmm. But when we were on the road, just these 4 teenagers in a van and trailer, just going coast to coast, driving around playing shows, just doing our thing. I found, and I realized this more in hindsight after leaving the band, people expected you to have answers that you didn't always have the answer to.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself just kind of scraping from the bottom of the barrel, just coming up with any cliche answer to give them kind of peace of mind about the things that they were going through, or their struggles as teenagers themselves, their mental health, them dealing with suicide. Rather than going to a counselor or a therapist, they're going to their favorite singer in a band, which is crazy. You know, if you think about it, I was 19 years old and some kids telling me about them struggling with suicide and me telling them, oh, I don't know, give it to God. Like, that was the cop-out answer, which is a great answer. But if that's your only answer and you don't know why you tell them that, you only tell them that because, for me, that's what I was taught. You know, if things are wrong, you know, just trust in God. That's the easy church answer. And I think after years and years of doing that, I'm just kind of like, I just got tired of the same cliche answer that didn't really have much depth or meaning to it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that just kind of tore me apart. And you know, before deconstruction was a trend or a fad or cool or popular, I had a lot of questions myself that I wasn't getting any answers to. And I just kind of gave up, and I was kind of over it. And I was just tired of being the spokesperson for the kingdom of God. And that was the reality I was kind of faced with. And rather than present my questions or have anybody to present my questions to, I just quit. And
Wow.
I made a lot of poor choices while I was still in the band. And these poor choices just caught up with me, but there was no accountability either. So I was just kind of just floating.
Yeah.
And, you know, I started becoming super cynical towards everything, towards church, towards Christian music, the Christian industry, towards God himself. And it, you know, again, in hindsight, you know how this story was going to end. And I just rage quit, man. I just was so fed up. I was just so over it. I just seemed like a phony person saying the right thing on stage to sell a t-shirt. And I just remember drinking got really, really common for me. And yeah, man, night after night after night, which turned into daytime and just nonstop, like, it got really messy real quick. And again, back to the early days of, you know, my parents never really explained to us why we don't do certain things, why we don't drink alcohol, why we don't do drugs, why we don't, you know, look at pornography, because it's a trap and it's an addiction. And growing up in a family that deals with addictions and that kind of personality, I didn't realize what alcohol could have done to a single person like me. And I didn't think it would affect me because I was the singer of a Christian band.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't have those problems, you know. But as time would soon tell, it got me, and it got me real good. And it started to really seep through my blood, and every night. And it caught up with me real quick. And if I could go back and change one thing in my life, that would for sure be it. But at the same time, I have that to be able to explain to my kids. So if my kids ask why we don't drink, I can be like, it's not because you're going to go to hell. That was kind of the cliche answer my parents would tell us. It's not because of that. It's because here's what alcohol does to your body. Here's what alcohol does to your mind. Here's what it does to your personality. It can do these kind of damages, and it's not worth it, you know?
Yeah.
And my kids have already asked about that, and I'm more than happy to tell them. You know, my wife and I, we don't drink, and there is a reason for that. And I'm thankful God delivered me from that, you know, and
absolutely.
It wasn't easy, but it's been a great thing. But anyway, so I announced to my band that I was leaving. I remember sending this crazy long, maybe more aggressive than passive aggressive email to them saying, hey, I'm over this, and let's just wrap this up at the end of the year and call it. And we had a big band meeting, and the first show of this one tour, I was like, hey, we got to keep this on the down low. Let's not let this get out to anybody. And I agreed. Well, I still had all these questions about faith in God. And
Yeah.
I ended up selling Hawk Nelson, and I moved to New York City with my wife at the time. Our marriage was it was short lived and it was on the rocks before it even got started. She was a VJ for MTV,
Oh, wow.
and we moved to Nashville before we got married. And actually, I bought a house in Nashville before we got married, and we decided to build our life kind of there. But man, when we got married, we went on our honeymoon, and I went on the road for 3 months, and that's the only life that I knew. I did not know how to live at home and be like an independent or codependent person. I was a band guy through and through. I didn't know how to live aside from being on a bus, you know. And so when I came home to be with her, it just something didn't feel right. It didn't click, and you know, we didn't know how to do it, and it's no one's fault. We were very young. You know, as I look back, I think it was more of a professional move. You know, a guy in a fairly successful Christian rock band with a MTV VJ, you know, joining forces, and we were kind of like that power couple in our circle of friends, you know, and
Yeah.
we did a lot of events together, and it was good for our careers and our professions. As we learned to live together, I think I was like, I want to try being a husband and a dad, because being a dad was one of those top things on my bucket list as a kid growing up. I always wanted to be a parent. And as we tried to learn to live together and be married, time soon, you know, told us that, or as time went on, she explained to me that she didn't actually want to be a parent. She wanted to focus on her career, which makes sense. And then one drunken night on a New Year's party, we kind of had this big blow up of a fight that it got pretty messy and really, really ugly that night. And some very hurtful words were said to each other. And then January 1st, we kind of woke up and we're like, hey, we should probably have to address what was said last night, because I know things were messy, but there was a lot of truth and hurt in those words that were said. And yeah, we talked about it, and she's like, yeah, I don't think I could ever move to Canada, and I don't want kids. And I was like, dang, like when we were dating, that was kind of like, you know, like let's move to Canada and we'll have a family and it'll be so cool. We can start our life there. And yeah, totally. And then you grow up and you're like, well, that's not what we want. That's
Yeah,
not
I don't
what we
really
both
want
wanted.
that.
Yeah. So I was like, man, I wish we had that conversation 3 years ago, but it was what it was. Right. So she's like, listen, I'm going to move to New York City, and I don't know what you want to do at the house, but if you want to stay in Nashville, I totally get it. And I was like, yeah. I'm like, shoot. I'm like, okay. And so we hummed and hawed about it. And so she moved to New York, and I was like, dang it. So I think I stayed in Nashville for a little bit, but I was like, yeah, we got to work on this. So I ended up packing up and moved to New York City, and even though I didn't want to, but I wanted to do it for our marriage, and it worked until it didn't. In fact, it never really worked. We tried it for another year, and it was just weird. And then she got another offer, and she just kept getting these career opportunities that she didn't want to turn down. So she was flying to like Argentina, Brazil, and LA, like every other weekend, you know. And so it was just, you know, I was still kind of trying to tour on my own. It was sucky because I ended up going from like these massive stadium tours with Hawk Nelson to playing to like 8 people in like a pub. You know, it was just a crappy thing, and I hated it. But I wanted to pull my weight and still kind of do it because, you know, music was in me, and I really feel like I was born to make music, and it was just my thing, you know. But anyways, as time went on, I just got really depressed about where my life was going and my career was going, and my wife didn't want kids, and she didn't want to move back to Canada, and I was like, I wanted all those things. I wasn't getting any of it, and I got really depressed, and that would turn to more drinking and just trying new things. And I remember just smoking. I mean, I smoked a lot of weed in New York and a lot of hash, and like I just got into it, and I was just living this different lifestyle because I was no longer on this like under the microscope of being a Christian artist, I guess.
Yeah.
So I felt like I had a
freedom.
lot more freedom.
Yep.
And so I could just, all the friends I made in New York didn't know about this band I led for 15 years. They had no idea. And so I could just or I felt like I could just be myself or reinvent myself, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But then fast forward, another year, my wife left. She's like, I'm going to move to LA. And she's like, again, same conversation. You can come or don't. I don't care. And this time I just put my foot down. I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to stay. And so we split up and she moved to Los Angeles. I lived in New York and I went wild. I just went off the deep end, went off the rails and ruined my life. Everything I sold the band for, I blew it. I did not invest any of it. And every cent of my name was just gone. And wow. I was just like, what do I do? And I was like, do I just move to LA and just suck it up so I can have a roof over my head? I'm like, or do I move back to Canada? Like, I wanted to do that, but I didn't have, I had nothing. And so I ended up just driving. And actually, I was playing in a band called Lights Go Down during this time. I created a band, and we actually did like 8 shows together, like I mentioned to you earlier, where we did these festivals and whatever. And ironically, I actually didn't realize this till right now. My very first show was in Kokomo, Indiana, and my very last show was in Kokomo, Indiana.
Oh, wow.
That is crazy. I didn't even realize that till right now. So anyways, it was July 12th. And so anyways, I had just drove back home. And so in January that was in July, but January previously, I was just visiting this bar every day. It was like 100 paces from my apartment on West 49th Street in New York City. And I've been going there daily for probably a year. I got to know the crew there pretty well. And let's just say they took care of me. So I would just drink myself asleep every night and just stumble back to my apartment. And during this time, I'm like, frick, I'm getting divorced. I've got to probably tell my family or fill them in on what's going on with my life, because I wasn't super close with my family. They would call every now and again, and I'm not going to tell them over the phone. How's like, oh, good, yeah, and just kind of keep it like that, right? But anyways, I was like, okay, I'm going to go home, let them know just where I'm at, and just kind of make a plan to move back home, I guess. It took me 3 goes, man. I flew home first time, chickened out, didn't tell them anything. And then the second time, same thing, chickened out, didn't tell them. The third time, I remember flying in. I remember taking a train because I couldn't afford a flight. So I took a train, like an Amtrak, from New York City to Toronto, which is it was like a stupid long train ride. And I gathered all my thoughts, bulleted out all my thoughts, my plan to tell my parents about me and my wife splitting up and all that stuff. And I just remember my dad picking me up from the airport or from the train station and getting back to my parents' house. And I remember it was a big party. And I was an idiot because I didn't realize this was January, end of January. And all my siblings, or the majority of my siblings, all their birthdays are in January. My mom's birthday is in January. My uncle's birthday is in January. Everyone in my family's birthday is in January. So we had this community birthday party just one night, and everyone just has a big party. Everyone gets together, we have a dinner, whatever, play games, and it's typical Christian family stuff. You want to play Monopoly? It's fine. It was just the expectation, right? And so I'm like, shoot, I'm clearly not going to tell my whole family at this party, at this gathering. So the third time I didn't do it. And so whatever. I ended up flying back to New Jersey because it was a cheaper flight. And I flew to New Jersey, took a cab from New Jersey back to my apartment in Manhattan. And instead of going home, I actually took my suitcase with me to the bar And Johnny, who I'd known, who was the head bartender there, he got me a drink and whatever and a burger. And I remember just sitting there, and he's like, "Hey, man, I want to introduce you to the new bartender. Her name's Neve." And so I was like, "Hey, nice to meet you." And I looked disgusting. I just been flying and traveling. And I remember because I was wearing glasses, and I only wear glasses when I'm like, scrubby, like I'm wearing glasses right now because I'm at home, like it doesn't matter. But, like I wasn't going out planning to meet anybody or hang out with friends or anything, So I met this new bartender, and she was a babe, and I go, great. Like I look like an idiot right now. And whatever. We just kind of chatted. She helped me out, and I said good night, goodbye, whatever. And that was kind of that. And then I frequented that bar again. And whenever I wasn't on the road, I would often play with some of these Irish guys because it was like an Irish pub.
Oh, okay.
And I've had this huge like infatuation with Irish music and Irish bands. I've always loved like Dropkick Murphys and Flogging Molly, So like, I can kind of rip the mandolin a little bit. And so anytime these Irish guys would play, I'd just come and bring my guitar or mandolin and just kind of jam with them. Well, this one Saturday, this bartender, Neve, grabbed her guitar, whistle, and was like playing with them too. I'm like, heck, this chick is awesome. Like she plays guitar, she plays this tin whistle, she sings, and like, this is fun. So we ended up playing together a little bit there, just having fun playing and whatever. So as months went by, I could kind of feel there's some sort of something happening between her and me. And I'm like, frick, this sucks. Like, kind of into this chick. I can tell she's kind of into me, I think. So I was like, when I'm moving back to Canada, I'm like, this is weird. What are these feelings I've got again? Like, so I remember just straight up asking her, I'm like, hey, like, what do you want? Like, what do you look for in a man? Like, like it was kind of it was a bold thing to ask,
Yeah.
And so she kind of told me, oh, cool. I'm like, would you ever want a family? She's like, yeah. She's like, my like life goal is to be a mom. I'm like, cool. I'm like, would you ever move to Canada? And like, I didn't really say that, but those kind of thoughts are like going through my head because I'm like, I mean, I wasn't old, but I felt like I kind of wasted a lot of years of my life by not pursuing an actual like soulmate and someone that would like to, be a wife and a mom that, and have a family,
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like I wasted a good chunk of my life. So I kind of felt rushed. But anyways, all that to say, I was like, hey, it's been a lot of fun hanging out with you, but I'm moving to Canada and back to the last show I did with Lights Go Down was July 12th. And I remember that because it was the last festival and I knew I was going back home and I had my truck with all my things in it, which wasn't a lot of things. It was like a suitcase, my guitar, and my dog. And my dog went to like the last run of shows with me because I was planning to move back. And as I was driving back from Indiana back to Canada, I remember calling Neve. I got her phone number somehow. And I remember calling her for the first time because I knew July 12th was her birthday. I'm like, frick, do I call her? I have like a 13-hour drive ahead of me. And I'm like, I'm just going to do it. So I called her and talked to her on the phone all the way to the border. And anyways, I ended up getting back to Canada the next day in the afternoon. I stopped to sleep or whatever. And I remember when I pulled into my parents' driveway, my mom came out. And she knew right then and there something was changed because for one, she saw the stuff in the back of my truck. I had my dog with me, so she knew I wasn't home for a short-term thing. So she just, as soon as she walked out, that's kind of when things got real for me. I just broke down in their driveway and like bawled my eyes at like my mom's arms. And I just told her, I'm like, we broke up, we're getting divorced, I don't know what to do. And honestly, I thought she would have been really like, I kind of thought they'd be upset at me, being from a strong Christian family. Like, you made an oath in front of God. You signed a contract. You need to work this out.
Yeah, like that religious approach.
Yeah, I was pretty certain that's what was going to be said, but it wasn't at all. My parents embraced me with loving arms and told me it was going to be okay and were going to help me get back on my feet. And I was like, can I stay in my bedroom for a little bit till I can just figure what to do next, And I was actually back. I was supposed to go back home that that week for my sister's wedding because my sister's getting married. And so that's kind of why I went home initially. But then I knew I was staying longer. So I told my mom, like, hey, like, my mom doesn't drive, right? So I was kind of her chauffeur for the week I was there visiting. But then I was like, frick, I'm going to stay. So I was driving my mom around for like my sister's wedding and getting things checked out for dresses and rehearsals and all that fun stuff. So I remember driving my mom, and it was out in the kind of like out on the water. It was a really nice place where my sister got married. Actually, my wife and I got married there too. But anyways, we'll get back to that. But as I was driving my mom home from my sister's like rehearsal thing, there's this old hardware store like in the country. I'm like, hey mom, I gotta stop in. I gotta grab something. I'm like, they're also hiring, so I'm like, if they offer me a job, you know, then I'll stay. You know, I was just kind of joking, but they ended up offering me a job. The guy there, John, he was my boss for like a year, and I just walked in. I straight up told him, like, hey man, like, I have zero skills. Like, here's my resume. And I just remember looking over at my resume and him just looking it over and humming and hawing. And he had like one of those thick, like Canadian accents, you know? And I just remember looking it over. He's like, so you play in a band, huh? Like, yeah, like that's all I've got, man. And so he's like, well, listen. He's like, are you good with people? I was like, I don't know. Like, I feel like I feel like I might be. Like, I know what a 2x4 is, and I can talk to people. And he was like, listen. He's like, my son is around your age, and he was supposed to be a pro hockey player, but last year he got injured, and he's not going to be able to play again. So he doesn't know what to do. He's like, so I feel for you. He's like, I'm going to give you a chance. So he gave me a chance, and he put me in the lumber yard where I learned about pressure treated lumber and 2x4s and 2x6s, you know, and where I knew nothing about that stuff at all. And during this time, this girl Neve had kind of messaged me. She's like, hey, she's like, me and my sister and my other friend, we're going camping up near Canada. You should totally come. LOL or whatever emoji. You know, I was like, what do I do with that? You know, so I was like, shoot. I just started working like a real person's job. Like, I don't think I can just take time off. I had no idea. So anyways, I ended up taking a week off. I drove down to Lake Placid, New York, and met this girl, Neve, again, and her sister and friend, who I knew her friend because she worked at the bar as well.
Oh, okay.
And I straight up just asked her, I'm like, what do you want in a husband, and would you ever move to Canada? And I just asked her right away, because I'm like, frick, if I'm gonna drive 6 hours to meet some girl to go camping, then, like, you know, let's put some feelers out here, you know?
Yep.
So that camping trip happened, and then after that, she's like, I want to come visit you. So she kept coming to visit. I'm like, okay, this is weird. This is neat. Like, I feel special again. You know, this girl, she's nice. She likes me. It's nice. And, you know, you start getting these butterflies again. And then I started bringing her around to my family, and my mom's meeting this girl. And during all this time, my mom's like, still, you know, this righteous zealot, and she's hearing about my issues with faith and God and church and all that stuff. And she's like, baby, you need to go to church, and you need Jesus. And I was like, no, I don't, Mom. Like, I clearly let her know where I felt or how I felt with all that kind of stuff, you know. She would constantly be inviting me to church, and I just kept saying no, respectfully, of course. But anyways, when Neve kept coming to visit, my mom invited her to go to church. And, you know, Neve's not going to say no to my mom, and I'm not going to say no to Neve. So it was like a loophole of sorts.
Yep, I was going to say, there's a workaround there.
Yeah, so and he's like, hey, your mom invited us to go to this church thing. I'm like, oh, gosh. I'm like, okay, well, I guess we can go if you really want. She's like, no, I think it'd be good. I'd like to try. She's like, I've never really been to church outside of going to Catholic church in Ireland. So I was like, well, okay. So Neve's from Ireland, by the way. I should let you know that. So,
oh, okay, wow.
She'd moved to New York. Right when I met her, actually. So she hadn't only been there that long. She actually hated it, so she wanted to get out of New York. So that's kind of part of the story as well. So anyways, we end up going to church, and it was this bizarre thing. So this church was like an old person church. It wasn't the church that I grew up in. Two of my brothers are married to two sisters whose dad is the pastor at this old person church. Okay, so his name's Scott, and he invited my family to go. So they're all there, and it was a special production of Heaven's Gates and Hell's Flames. I just remember showing up to the church for this production, quote unquote production, and my parents are sitting in the very front row. Like, we're talking like 30 pews, 30 aisles of rows here. And we walked in a little bit late, and we're the only ones wearing like skinny jeans and like black t-shirts. Like, we're not wearing a suit and tie like all the 80-year-olds in the church. And I could just feel the eyes on us as we're walking down the aisles. And I remember my mom standing up, giving us both big hugs. And I just remember my dad just kind of sitting. So we had to like climb over him in the pew. Like, he wouldn't even stand up to get us through. But he's like, hey guys, which is all fine. I just remember that detail for whatever reason. But anyways, we sat there and we watched the whole production, and it went on and on. Like, it seemed like a lifetime. And afterwards, the pastor went up to the front and did the altar call. It's tradition. And I'm familiar with this stuff because I grew up with it, right? And just thinking of how terrible it was. And, I judged the whole thing. And he asked everyone if they, with every head bowed and every eye closed, if you just want to make a decision to make Jesus your personal Lord and Savior, to raise your hand or to come up to the front. And I just remember no one got up. That's all I remember. I'm like, this is so cringy. Like, and it was at that very moment, Neve just kind of stuck her elbow like into my rib cage, and she's like, "Hey," I'm like, "Hey," and she's like, "Would you go to the front with me?" Whereas honestly, I was like, "Hey," she's like, "Can we get out of here?" That's kind of what I thought she was going to be going with. And
yeah.
when she asked me if I would go to the front with her, I was like, "What?" Like, it was insane. Like, man, Scott, that was the last thing I expected to hear out of her,
Wow.
And I was just like, yeah, totally. And so we just stood up and we walked to the front together. And I just thought I was doing her a service by just kind of supporting her, right? But at the same time, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this is like for real happening. Like, a million things were going through my head. Like, it was bizarre to me. But then he's like, okay, so just repeat after me, and he's like, "Dear Jesus," and we're like, "Dear Jesus," and we just mirrored his prayer, and I knew, like, in that moment, Scott, that like something changed, not only in her life but in mine, and I knew in an instant that my life was changed, and God did something for real and something really powerful in both of our lives, where I saw Jesus as not a person my parents taught me to believe in as a kid, but as the Savior of the world, the guy that died for my sins. And I saw God and Jesus and faith in a whole new light. And yeah, it was a radical transformation.
Yeah,
and I know,
definitely.
you read that in the Bible where there's a difference in your countenance. Like, the way you look, the way you talk, the way you act is a fully different thing. And there's proof of that because we left that church and we drove right down to a bookstore and we went to like the religion section and we bought Bibles and Bible studies and just devotionals and things that we could learn about God and Jesus together. And back to the transformation thing, she ended up flying back to New York and I went back to work at this little crappy hardware store, and Tuesdays was like the truck day, and like the big truck would come and we'd unload all the lumber and whatever.
Oh, I hated truck day.
And this old man Tom I worked with, he was this old guy that he was retired, but he worked inside the store just so he could get like the employee discount. He was one of those guys. And but him and I don't know, we just got on really well. Like, he loved music, so he knew about my band, so he was always like going home after work to like, basically stalk me on YouTube. He's like, "I can't believe it was you, man." He's like, "You were like a rock star." I'm like, like I wasn't. Like, so that was just kind of our relationship. But then I just remember that Tuesday, he just looked at me and he's like, "Hey, man," he's like, "You're one of those Jesus guys, aren't you?" And I just looked at it and I just laughed, like, "What makes you say that, Tom?" He's like, "I don't know, man." He's like, "I just look at you. He's like, there is just something different about you." And I just look, I'm like, "Man," I'm like, "That's crazy that you say that." I'm like, "But yeah, I am." He's like, "I knew it." And then he made a joke. He's like, "Yeah," he's like, "I actually asked Jesus into my heart when I was a 10-year-old kid." He's like, "Because the lady at the camp said if I did that, I'd get a free ice cream cone at the end of the day." I'm like, "That's awesome, Tom." So, I mean, just the fact that some stranger, basically a stranger, could realize there was a difference in my life. Yeah. It's a telltale sign, man, that God was on the move in my life. And anyways, I just spoke way too long on that story.
No, that's.
But Neve ended up moving to Canada. I asked her to marry me, and we're celebrating 10 years this June.
Oh wow!
And
congratulations!
Yeah, and we have 3 awesome kids. Ryan, who you met,
yep,
he turned 9 this May, and we have twin daughters, Maddie and Mila, who just turned 7 in January. And it's been a trip, man. Yeah, I've been kind of all over the map. After I worked at that hardware store, I started attending a church that my old youth leader had started with his wife, and I just kind of wanted to help it anywhere I could. And after like a year of just serving there as a volunteer, they offered me a position to join their staff team, and I've been there for almost 8 years. And yeah, until December, I resigned in December at the Christmas service to pursue being back on the road, because, man, I just know I was created to make music, but I don't think I was created to make music for people inside the church, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that
I
makes
felt
perfect
more
sense.
alive and more real being on the road with Joseph and Seventh Day and those guys than I ever have in a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man, just a whole fresh perspective on life and God and faith has really restored my vision and purpose in life, and I'm thrilled.
That's so good. I'm glad that you seeing that skit ended out in a good way, because so many times, you hear things like that where one of two things happens. It's either someone sees that and then it just totally shuts them down, and they're like, they want nothing to do with church after that. They just feel this strong sense of judgment. Or B, like there is that fear, and it's like, so they kind of come to Christ out of fear, but it's not like a genuine heart thing. It's more of just like a get out of hell free card kind of thing. And so right. like that, like I hear so many situations where like those things happen. And so to hear that, like, you guys you seeing that, and what you thought was going to be a negative actually turned out to be a positive, and for you coming alongside her and the two of you then getting to build your relationship with God together.
Yeah. And it's cool, man, because like, even like when our kids were really little, you just reading them like Bible stories before bed. Like there'd be like certain stories that, growing up in the church, like Daniel in the lion's den, super simple story that every kid probably knows. But I remember reading it, and my wife was like, "Wait, I didn't know that." It's cool. Like,
yeah,
just like it was a neat thing to like watch our kids grow in their faith too, but as well as my wife and myself even too. And it's been a really, really cool thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you talking about feeling like you're meant to play music for those like outside of the church. And I feel like there is such a need for that. And, because there are people who, just a pastor can't reach, right? And there's people who they're not going to step foot in a church, but people who are into, punk music or rock music or hip hop, like, that's not played in the churches typically. And so there's people that are drawn to that kind of music. And so, with your story and your music, like you become so relatable. And so there are people that God has put you on path, for your paths to cross, and that, those people may not step foot in a church, otherwise. But when they hear your
Yeah,
music,
man,
they hear
you
your
know what,
story.
man? As well, and I know this sounds a little bit like I'm contradicting myself, but like I'm slowly realizing that people in the church need Jesus too.
Yeah.
I think we often like ignore them because it's like, well, they don't need to hear my story because they're in church, they're fine. But sometimes those people in the church, myself being one of them, was you just kind of get forgotten about because we assume you've got it all together,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't always the case. It's rarely the case, I've realized.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the church, and that's the thing is like, we think of the church as, you have to go there when you have your stuff together, when, everything is worked out, you don't have issues. And it's like, but the reality of it is the church was established to help the broken, to help the needy. And, and so to see that, I feel like there's so many times where people are afraid to kind of take their masks off in a sense and just be real and be vulnerable. But if you can find a church where that is the culture, then you have something very, very special, because there's so many churches out there, unfortunately, that can, to a degree, be superficial.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, man, like musicians as well, like pastors, people in like some sort of spiritual leadership get kind of treated in a way that you're kind of expected to perform.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it ate me alive in the early days. And I think that's where you see failure from like pastors and spiritual leaders, because of this expectation that gets put on them where they can't really reach that expectation. So there's no way they're going to succeed leading people in faith and in God, because expectations are never going to be met. And that's way too much pressure to put on someone like that. And they're going to crash and burn because of that.
Yeah.
So I think it's super important to have leaders, and I put myself in this category, to have someone to be accountable to. If you don't have that, you're lost. And
Exactly.
that, I'm pretty sure, I mean, there's no fact behind this, but this is my theory. I am pretty certain that is why you're seeing more and more deconstruction in Christian artists and Christian pastors. People are just falling away because they don't have that person to be accountable to. And it's crazy. Like, looking back, like, be on this last tour, I was the veteran on the tour, which is that's never been the thing. We were always like the new up and coming band. I felt like we were always trying to prove ourselves. And to be on this last run, I was like the old guy. And suddenly, like, and I'm so super thankful that I got to spend the last 8 years working in a church, because it taught me how to be a good leader and a good shepherd, and to pastor people.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like my role had shifted dramatically being on this run than any tour I'd ever been a part of, because I got to be the accountability guy, where I could, if any other guys had questions, which they did, which I thought was super cool. And just, that brought life to our tour, man, just to be able to have that vulnerability and the authenticity, to just grab 20 minutes just down in the dressing room and just chat one-on-one about God and faith and life, and trying to lead when you don't know how to lead. Like, it really made that tour and that lineup so much stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt like, man, like, is this my new role? Am I the old guy on the tour now? Like, for me, growing up on tour, like, Toby was that guy for me. Like, in my humble opinion, Toby Mac can do no wrong. And like, I don't know, I looked up to him so strongly. Like, he was like, he's still a role model to me, but like, that guy just could do no wrong. And to be able to lead by his example would just be, I don't know, next level. And I'm going to look to Toby for everything moving forward. And if I can do a little bit of what Toby did for me growing up, then that would be the best.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so special and so powerful to have that and to have those opportunities. We had in a Bible study one night, we had the pastor of the church, which this Bible study was not, it was outside of the church. The church basically just let us use their building. And so we met in this room, and the pastor actually came in and was like, hey, I just want to kind of hang out with you guys and see what's going on, and just hang out with the guys for a little bit, because it was a men's study. And so he comes in. Now, mind you, this guy has been a pastor for over 30 years. He is a college professor that teaches theology. Just super intelligent, knows the Bible inside and out. And he was talking to us, and he actually started sharing with us about how he struggles, he wrestles with his faith from time to time. Like, he struggles with doubts. He had talked to us about how he, had bouts of depression, and, there were times where he thought about, recently, that he thought about suicide. And it's unreal, to hear somebody to go through those struggles. And it's somebody that, you thought, man, if there's anybody that has all the answers and has everything together, it's this guy. And it honestly...
How powerful is that, though, right?
Yeah, it made me have all the more respect for him. I respected him as a pastor, as a teacher. He was a great guy, and I had attended his church for a little bit. He's phenomenal. But hearing that and just hearing him be so raw and real, made me respect him even more. And I'm like, man, if every pastor just had a place where they could go and just unload and just really share their heart and how they've been feeling, both good and bad, man, it would be a big difference. And I believe we would see a huge shift in the church.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I 100% agree.
So we had someone reach out to us and wanted us to ask you a question. And so,
all right.
So their question for you is, if you could have a theme song, what would that be?
I could have a theme song. This sounds cheesy. It sounds cheesy as soon as I say it, but it's not, because it's a banger. And it's the first song that popped into my head when you first asked me the question, so I'm going to stick with it. It's the Anthem by Good Charlotte. I don't know. That just feels like that's just the song I would like. That's the one that popped into my head.
Oh man, I was a huge Good Charlotte fan when I was a teenager.
All right, yeah.
I absolutely loved Good Charlotte. I wanted to ask you kind of a little bit of a deeper question. Because, the way that, your story is, and just, struggling with faith and feeling like you didn't have the answers, maybe questioning God, and then you just deconstruct it. And maybe there's somebody that's going to listen to this episode that is going through the same thing, that they're wrestling with their faith. They're questioning if God even exists. What would you want that listener, what would you tell them?
As simple as this. There's always, one person that's pretty close to me in my life always has these questions about God. It's like, oh yeah, well, really? So 2 animals from every animal God just put them on the ark? I'm like, that's the argument about whether God is real or not? To me, it goes back to this simple truth is did Jesus Christ really die for my sins? Start with that.
Mm-hmm.
In my life, I believe that he did. And because of that truth, whatever else in the Bible, I believe that the Bible is God inspired. So yeah, man, just start with that. And what Jesus did for me, if Jesus can do that for someone like me, he can do it for anybody. And then just the way Jesus lived his life is a life I want to model my life after. And whether 2 animals from the ark really walked themselves on there, that's kind of irrelevant to why I believe in Jesus or not. You know what I mean? The way that Jesus treated other people is the way I want to treat other people. And that's as simple as I can take it. It's stripped down, and that's that.
Yeah, no, that's good. Love God, love people. And so I know you're working on a new album, and when is that album coming out?
Yeah, it's coming out May 22nd, and it's already done. So the pre-orders have started last week, and it's been incredible, actually. The response has been way better than I thought, if I'm honest with you, Scott.
Okay.
So, I mean, you know me, I set a really low bar. That way expectations are always met, but my expectations have certainly been exceeded. So I'm really, really excited for this. May 22nd, formerly known as by yours truly. And yeah, hopefully you enjoy it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited to hear it. For anybody that is listening, how can they follow you to stay up to date on your shows and what you're working on?
I'm getting better at posting on the internet. I used to be horrible at it because I'm a dad. My Instagram is Jason Dunn Music.
Okay. Jason, man, I am so grateful that you jumped on here. I know it's late. I am super grateful that you chose to stick it out and to be here with me. I would love to bring you back in May to maybe sample a couple of the songs on the new album and, just kind of hear your heart behind those songs, what the inspiration was.
Yeah.
I would love to have that opportunity as well. So
let's party.
So, all right, man.
I'm not scared.
All right.
Thanks so much for having me, Scott. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I hope you have a good night, and I'm sure I will be seeing you on the road in the near future.
Yes, sir. Let's go.
We'll sing the song of ages to the Lamb. Your name is the highest. Your name is the greatest. Your name stands above them all. All thrones and dominions, all powers and positions. Your name stands above them all. And the angels cry.